Hi guys, what's going on and welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So, I am finally back off my holiday, so I've been away for a couple of days. That's why I know we've been experiencing some sort of problems with the audio on some of the older videos where I did a clump of them together and just as I'd moved to my new PC, I kind of messed that all up a little bit. But I've just got back and I just thought I wanted to quickly try and pop out the 3.1.14 patch video to take a look at what's changing, because it's really quite a significant patch and there's a lot going on in this one, and I kind of wanted to get this one out for tomorrow because I know we didn't have a video today either because I was still away, and today is Tuesday, so tomorrow should be Wednesday when this comes out. So yeah, let's try and get this done. So yeah, there's quite a lot changing both in terms of balance and in terms of new features that are being implemented. So we'll start with sort of the new features that are being implemented because this is kind of the main changes, and I generally think it's been done quite well. So it's all basically revolving around ability swapping. So if you can remember back, probably about a month or so ago now, maybe more, that we had the PTS server did a test on ability swapping, which enabled tier 10 units to basically swap out their usual unit abilities. Like for example here, these tier 5 Roman medium infantry have a stab strike, and they have a 2-throw javelins, peelers, and that is their unit abilities that they have available to them. And that's great, but obviously they're predetermined by what the unit type is, so different units have different abilities. These archers have a focus fire and a dash. These cavalry have a vicious strikes, etc, etc. But in the PTS testing, they enabled the tier 10s to swap out these abilities to whatever they wanted, so they could add, say, a raised shield or a hamstring, and this enabled a lot of options, and it really changed up the way tier 10 played, because enabled you to use some pretty powerful abilities and combine them all together in one sort of perfect unit that enabled you to counter things like put hamstring on Germanicus tier 10 infantry, which was crazy because it enabled, obviously once you catch someone in vengeance, one of the main counters is to run away, and then if you're going to give that Germanicus hamstring, then that suddenly means that your units can't run away from a vengeance. So yeah, that was really kind of not very well implemented in the PTS, but of course a lot of feedback was given based on that, and a lot of things have changed, and definitely for the positive. The broad overview is, you're still limited to the 3 slots that tier 10s have, and before I actually get into this, it's no longer just tier 10s, it's also tier 9s as well, which is definitely a positive change given the way the matchmaking works. Tier 10s and tier 9s are always fighting together. If you gave it just to tier 10s only, that would be giving them a massive buff, whereas now by giving it tier 9s and tier 10s sort of both, it sort of balances that out a little bit. So yes, so there's that. So you get your 3 stock abilities, and you still get to only swap those 3. You can't add 5 abilities or something like that. You're still limited to those 3, and they are now faction specific. So Roman infantry can no longer get hamstring or slam or any of the barbarian abilities, or they can't get shield wall from Carthage, because abilities are faction specific. I think that's a really good thing, because it adds some uniqueness to factions, which I think is kind of important to keep into the game, and it stops really crazy combinations starting to come off, i.e. hamstring on Roman infantry. There's also going to be some limitations on strikes. I was a little bit I'm not 100% sure how this is going to work, because I'm not sure what they're classing as a utility strike and an aggression strike. So for example, to use these Roman infantry that I've obviously just got with my artillery, this stab here is classed as an aggression strike. Its sole purpose is to do damage, whereas say something like slam or hamstring, they're classing as a utility strike, where its main goal is to not really cause damage so much, but to in those 2 cases slow down the enemy, stop them from escaping. But it could be has some other effect. So you're not allowed, say, 2 aggression strikes. So you couldn't have stab and, say, vicious strikes combined. You wouldn't be allowed that. But you could, say, as barbarians, have slam and hamstring, because slam is a utility strike, and oh no, you couldn't. You could have something like, what's the barbarian? A barbarian aggressive strike. Can't think of any off the top of my head, but a barbarian aggressive strike and slam or hamstring, because that would be a utility strike and an aggression strike. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say, and that's not put most clearly. So if you actually have a look in the patch notes, you can see kind of the full list of what's going to be available. But some interesting combinations are going to be, Sulla now is going to have access to raised shields, and with that being his sort of traditional real weakness, vulnerability to missiles, that's going to make a real big difference. And there's also quite a lot of new abilities being introduced into the game as well, which we aren't existingly seeing on units already. So these are going to be added in. I'm going to have to scroll down because I can't remember what they all are. Some are really kind of interesting and some are absolutely useless. It's kind of a real mix. So yeah, there's like, for example, let's have a look at some of the ones we've got here. Yeah, shields up. A short missile block for cavalry gives plus 20 missile block, but minus 20% movement speed. Is that really an ability you're going to be wanting to take? You know, I guess plus 20 missile block is nice, but at the sacrificing of 20% movement speed, you know, I'd rather just get out of the way of the ranged quicker. I don't think that's a particularly useful thing. There's a couple of interesting ones for archers. Most of them are useless, like focus fires, variants of focus fire that just does like increased penetration damage, while archers are only doing sort of 15 to 20 penetration damage anyway, so is there really a benefit to upping that by 20%? You know, not really a lot of great benefit. But things like, there is one, Suppress, which causes a 25% reload debuff on enemies within the focus fire circle, which I thought was kind of interesting. I'm not sure how that will play out. I'm not convinced it would be really viable, but it's certainly an interesting idea for an ability to add into the game, so maybe we'll see something interesting sort of with that along the way. So that's something we've got coming in. I noticed there's a few ones for dogs as well coming in. Crush, a cavalry strike which actually slows enemies down, so that's kind of like a slam or a hamstring for cavalry, which I thought was kind of interesting. There's a couple of upgraded barbarian charges and things like that which are being introduced, so rather than just harass as now a deadly harass, which is just sort of increased movement speed, acceleration, and a bit more charge impact damage to go with it. Is nice when you're getting into the high tiers. There's going to be, you know, a few more extra things. I saw there's also a barbaric slash, which is supposed to be a versatile strike, which does good amounts of damage, but also causes a small 20% movement speed debuff on the enemy. So kind of interesting things like that are getting added in, which I think sort of are going to be interesting. One worrying thing I saw, which I thought sounded very powerful to me, is an ability called Whistling Arrows, which is a focus fire ability. So this is one of these archer ones that have been brought in, but it does 20 morale damage, so minus 20 morale off enemies. Let's be able to sort of apply a minus 20 morale modifier at sort of range over the battlefield. Seems quite powerful to me. That could be really influential. And causing friendly fire probably in that sort of situation where you're just trying to rouse someone really wouldn't matter because of the potential to impact that. So that seemed very, very powerful to me. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. But maybe I'm just getting a bit carried away. I don't know. So yeah, so there's a whole handful of new abilities coming in. I've only discussed just a snippet of them, but I haven't got time to go through absolutely every single one. This video would be half an hour long. So that's unit swapping and the new abilities putting in. So moving on, pikes. So in the last patch in 3.1.13, pikes were nerfed quite heavily. They basically added fatigue into them, changed the way some of the system modifiers work, and yeah, it got nerfed pretty badly, and they feel that they've slightly overdone it. So they don't want to get rid of fatigue and feel like they're going backwards, which is kind of understandable. So what they've basically done is upped the melee attack of pikes, so that they should be able to, when they get engaged in combat, they should be able to land hits more often, which I think is kind of what people have been feeling is the cause of the problem. And I think I'd probably agree with that, because the lack of melee attack is kind of what causes them to not get hits and therefore not get knockback, and not be able to take advantage of a lot of their abilities. So yeah, I think that's probably a rightful improvement, but also providing a very, very small movement speed buff to basically all the pikemen. It's about 0.15 of a base movement speed buff across the whole range. Not a lot, but it's a little bit. And pikes are pretty slow, so a little bit actually is not so bad in terms of the grand scheme of things, so I'll be pretty pleased about that. Other than that, there's a few other small changes, but nothing dramatic pike-wise that I think there really needs to be a lot more said about, that you can't read yourself in the patch notes if you're interested. Well, I've read out of replays already. Obviously, I've not had any battles since I've been gone. So, yes, elephants are getting changed as well, and getting a little bit of a nerf, which I think is kind of interesting. Do I have elephants selected? I do. That's handy. So, basically, their melee defense is getting nerfed. So, if we look, for example, at these elephants here, their melee defense is 80. So, on this, it's going to be taken down to, say, from 80 to 68. So, it's quite a heavy nerf. That's coming on for like 15%, something like that, probably. And that's going to basically reduce the ability of elephants to sort of mitigate damage in terms of not receiving hits. They're going to be much more easily damaged by pikes, because obviously melee defense determines the chance of landing a hit, and also when they're engaged in infantry fights, they should now start to take more damage more quickly, because infantry should be able to do the damage more quickly. Completely combined with the fact that Ad Portus obviously gives a buff to melee defense, this tier 30%. That 30% is now on a lower base value, so the buff is actually going to be less with Ad Portus as well. So we're going to see quite a change in how that plays out, I think, in elephants. So I think that's probably a welcome debuff. If you watched my video the other day, you know, elephants can still be pretty powerful. So yeah, I think that's certainly a step in the right direction. So more balance changes, premium units. Pretty much, as far as I can see, almost every premium unit is getting a nerf in this patch. So I mean, taking an example, starting off at the top, I've done a review on this unit, the Massinissa's Guard. Heavy nerfs to defense from 80 to 73, melee attack 150 to 140, damage is being lowered by 10, and the armor is being knocked down as well. That's probably going to be bring them much more in line with sort of, if not the stock units, probably sort of a middle upgrade unit. Not quite as powerful as they once were. You know, again, another tier 8, the Auxiliary Palatina, the tier 8 Roman Spearmen I did a review on, which I thought were excellent as a unit, very powerful, having a heavy movement speed nerf from 3.79 to 3.35. They're going to change how they play in game, because they didn't feel that slow for a heavy infantry. Now they are, because now they've just become cripplingly slow. Myrmidon's nerfed, Ebuoni's Marksman, even the Hispanic Legionaries, the Legio 9 Hispania premium unit, which I did a review on probably a week or so ago, is getting a small nerf. So yeah, right across the board they seem to be bringing down premium units, even ones that I wouldn't have said were particularly all that powerful, which I didn't really feel needed a nerf, but like Harry Painted Warriors, lowering melee attack, lowering morale, and shield defense. Did they really need a nerf? Maybe. So yeah, go and check that out on the patch notes if you've got any premium units and you're worried they've been nerfed. They probably have, although there are a few things missing off the list, just not a lot. So that's kind of interesting. I think it's probably following quite a lot of sort of complaints and pressure on Creative Assembly to sort of feel like this game isn't pay to win. And while I guess it's kind of distressing if you've recently brought one of these premium units and feel now it's suddenly been nerfed, you know, it's obviously not good for you. I think overall it probably is a good thing, and probably a step in the right direction in general. So yeah, you know, we'll have to see about that. So War Dogs are getting changed. Have we got these selected? We may do. Let's flick over to Budig. We have indeed. So War Dogs are getting a small buff finally, although it's not a particularly helpful buff necessarily. They feel that ordinary War Dogs aren't in a brilliant place, and they want to rework how the system works and deals with War Dogs entirely. They're going to come up with an entirely new way of implementing them. But in the short term, they have buffed the missile block chance of the units fairly significantly. So which ones are these? Are these the tier 7s? So these are the Broccoline Biters, are getting their missile block chance from currently from 23 to 38. So not quite double, but almost. And we're also getting access to the Feast and Swear Oaths consumable, which is obviously better, increasing the amount of damage and stuff we can do. So yeah, I think that's certainly a step in the right direction. Shame there's nothing about movement speed, base movement speed of the unit, which is what I'd really like to see increase with these War Dogs, because they always feel a bit slow. But yeah, certainly a step in the right direction with War Dogs, and at least they are aware that changes need to be made. So what else is changing? We're nearly there now, I promise. We're getting a couple of the abilities, including some of the ones I mentioned earlier, are getting slight nerfs. Nothing major. So Ray Shields, which is actually one of the main ones, is getting, instead of having minus melee defense, it's going to have minus movement speed, and importantly, this is significant, minus ranged weapon range. So for example, javelins, which have, say, often use a Ray Shields, are now going to get a minus 20% range modifier by having Ray Shields on. That's going to be really significant, particularly as well for slingers and things. That minus 20% probably going to put slinger range back into sort of archer range. So having Ray Shields is going to not be quite such a benefit for the slingers anymore. It's going to turn out to be quite a nerf for the slingers, I think. So we'll have to see how that implements itself. Things like snipe and stray and stuff are getting toned down a little bit on archers. So again, slowly toning range down a little bit, which I think is good. And it just finishes off really randomly on these patch notes of Misk. The boy Spearmen are getting a slight buff into missile block chance. if you play the boy Spearmen. Congratulations, you've gone from 23 to 38. You missed a whole block chance. And that, on that note, pretty much finishes off the patch notes. And I am going to go to bed because I'm absolutely shattered and it's really late and I've only been back like 10 minutes anyway. So hopefully you've enjoyed this sort of small patch review. Yeah, this will come out tomorrow on Wednesday. Along with the patch notes. If you liked it, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are there any particular changes you're worried about? I'm kind of interested with premium unit changes as well, what you guys think about that. I think it's good to not be going towards pay to win, but probably bad if you own one of those units. You might be a bit upset about that, so let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel for lots more Total War Arena content. And thanks for watching, guys. I shall see you all on the next video.